The soft click of the front door lock echoed through the silent apartment as Evelyn stepped inside. The familiar scent of her designer perfume filled the space, a fragrance I once loved but now found suffocating. I didn't turn around. My voice came out flat, devoid of emotion. "We need to end this." She paused mid-step, her keys still in hand. When I finally glanced at her, those striking features I had adored for years were twisted in confusion. "This is about me not answering your call yesterday." A bitter smile tugged at my lips. I gave a small, indifferent nod. Exactly that. A laugh escaped her, not a happy one, but the kind that comes when someone thinks they're hearing an absurd joke. She shrugged off her trench coat and let it fall onto the sofa, a gesture so casual it stung. "Come on, Adrian. We're not teenagers anymore. Aren't we supposed to give each other room to breathe?" Before I could respond, she crossed the room toward me, her body moving on autopilot, arms already reaching out to pull me into the embrace she had sought countless times before. Her lips brushed near my ear, her breath warm and sweet. "Stop being dramatic. What do you want this time?" I stood frozen. She had grown so certain of me over the years, certain that I would always be there, that I could never walk away. From the days of instant noodles and leaky ceilings to the pinnacle of wealth and power, Evelyn had convinced herself that I was permanently anchored to her side. When I didn't respond, she added another sentence, her tone carrying that same impatient patience she had perfected. "I wasn't ignoring you on purpose. Work was insane yesterday. A major project. I genuinely couldn't pick up." She reached up and patted my cheek gently. "You're reading too much into things." Those words landed like a death sentence. Every ounce of warmth I had left in my heart turned to ash. I pulled away from her abruptly, stepping back from the embrace that had once been my sanctuary. Her eyes flickered with surprise as I created distance between us. Looking at her with a face carved from stone, I said, "This is it. I'm walking away. In the equation of love, you failed one question, and to me, that's a complete failure. I have no interest in a love that isn't perfect." Her expression shifted into something resembling disbelief, as though I had just suggested the sky was green. The cold lighting of the apartment highlighted her flawless makeup and the exhaustion she carried like a crown. Evelyn sighed heavily, and within that sigh, there was no desperation to keep me, only weariness. "Adrian, we're both adults. Wouldn't we be better off giving each other more breathing room?" Her brow furrowed as she continued explaining, her voice taking on the tone she used when delegating tasks to underlings. "I haven't been distant with you. I was just swamped with work. An incredibly important deal. I genuinely didn't have a spare moment." The sound of my suitcase zipper cut through the air like a guillotine blade slicing through whatever remained between us. I straightened up, my tall frame moving past her. As I walked by, I couldn't bring myself to look at her, only offering an indifferent nod. "All right then. I'm leaving." Her hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. For the first time, genuine panic crept into her voice. "Adrian, where are you going? Are you abandoning me?" I recoiled as if her touch had burned me, shaking off her grip with more force than necessary. I lifted my head and locked eyes with the face I had once worshipped. "Abandon." A cruel smile curved my lips. "Evelyn, remember this clearly. From the very beginning, it was you who walked away from me." My fingers had just brushed the cold metal of the door handle when the lock clicked from the outside. The door swung open. Standing in the doorway was a young man with handsome features and an innocent smile plastered across his face. David, Evelyn's personal assistant. The three of us formed a grotesque tableau in that narrow entryway. My eyes drifted downward to his hand, where he held a house key. An identical copy of mine. A silent laugh racked my chest, each heave sending waves of pain through me. David's gaze swept over the suitcase at my feet, and for a split second, something triumphant flickered in his eyes before disappearing. He smiled warmly, playing the part of the harmless helper. "Brother Adrian, are you heading out on a trip?" He stepped aside slightly, as if clearing a path for me, his posture so natural he might have been the owner of this home. "Don't worry about a thing. I'll make sure Ms. Evelyn is well looked after while you're gone." The way he emphasized "well looked after" made my blood boil. I couldn't stomach looking at him any longer. I just wanted to escape this nauseating place. David seemed to raise his voice intentionally, ensuring Evelyn wouldn't miss a word. "Brother Adrian, please don't be upset with Ms. Evelyn. She really didn't mean to ignore your message yesterday. He wore an expression of guilt, performing his role flawlessly. It's completely my fault. I'm still so incompetent. That project was crucial, and I kept messing up. His voice dripped with admiration for Evelyn. Ms. Evelyn is incredibly kind and patient with me. She stayed up until the early hours helping me. He turned to me, his eyes filled with manufactured understanding and consolation. Brother Adrian, you really shouldn't be angry with Ms. Evelyn over something so small. And running away from home because you're upset isn't the answer. Ms. Evelyn already works herself to the bone. Please don't add to her worries. Every twisted word felt like sludge being poured over me, and Evelyn simply stood there, watching in cold silence. She said nothing. Not a single syllable. Her silence was the loudest confirmation, confirming David's narrative, confirming that she saw me as nothing more than a child throwing a tantrum to get attention. I laughed, the sound crawling out of my throat laced with frost. Secretary David, I said slowly, my gaze dissecting him from head to toe. You've been here 3 months now, haven't you? Does a project proposal really require the CEO to stay up all night walking you through every detail? Why don't you just hand your salary back to Ms. Evelyn? My voice remained soft, but each word landed like a slap. If I were in your shoes, I wouldn't have the nerve to accept that paycheck. 3 months on the job and still incapable of handling your responsibilities. Instead of asking experienced colleagues for help, you monopolize the CEO's private time. When it's raining, you don't bring an umbrella. Instead, you stand outside the company entrance getting soaked, just so you can conveniently cross paths with Ms. Evelyn's car. Even when we're on vacation, you manage to manufacture crises at the perfect moment. You can't write proposals. You double-book her schedule. Your rental apartment loses power and springs leaks. And who do you call? The busiest woman in the city. I shifted my gaze back to Evelyn's frozen face. Secretary David, are you a helpless infant? Or do you genuinely not know anyone else in this entire city besides Evelyn? David's complexion went ghostly white. His eyes widened as though he had been mortally wronged. Adrian, that's enough. Evelyn finally stirred. She stepped forward, positioning herself in front of the trembling David like a shield. She patted his shoulder as if comforting a frightened puppy. He's fresh out of school. Of course there are things he doesn't know. Isn't it our responsibility as his seniors to guide him? She looked up at me with reproachful eyes. You're being unnecessarily harsh. The stifled sob David let out from behind her was perfectly timed, slicing through the suffocating silence of the entryway. I held Evelyn's gaze. I've always been like this. Did you just figure that out today? My eyes traveled slowly across her familiar yet foreign face, finally landing on that key. The key to our home, the home that was supposed to belong only to us. My voice cracked, trembling with a vulnerability I hated myself for. You gave him a copy so easily. Evelyn's body stiffened. I released another hollow, sorrowful laugh. Grabbing my suitcase, I walked out without looking back. The first home we had ever owned together, the fortress we had built with our own hands, had now opened its doors to someone else without a second thought. I pulled my thin coat tighter around myself and stepped into the freezing night, letting the cold air numb me from the outside in. I retreated to the other apartment, the one that had always been mine alone. It was cold and silent, but at least it was clean. No couch we had picked out together. No scented candles she had chosen. Not a single remnant of Evelyn. Good riddance, I told myself. I sat down in front of my computer, the pale glow of the screen illuminating my bloodless face as my fingers typed out my resignation letter. No hesitation. No second guessing. A few minutes later, my phone rang. It was the HR director, her voice dripping with cautious curiosity. Brother Adrian, about your resignation. Does Ms. Evelyn know? A faint, cold smile touched my lips. She knows. Just process it through the proper channels. The relief in her voice was palpable. She even ventured into gossip territory. So why are you leaving? Is Ms. Evelyn expanding into a new industry and putting you in charge? I glanced out the window at the heavy night sky. Something like that. Yes, from now on, I would be solely responsible for my own life. Exhaustion swallowed me whole. I barely survived the next 2 days, collapsing onto my bed and sinking into a dreamless sleep. When I finally opened my eyes again, harsh sunlight was streaming through the window, demanding my attention. I reached for my phone out of habit and opened my social media feed. A 9-photo grid stopped me cold. Company team building event. Outdoor barbecue. Everyone was laughing around a massive grill. Evelyn stood out in her custom white athletic wear, elegant and radiant. And beside her, like a peacock showing off its feathers, was David in his loud, colorful sportswear, practically glowing with youthful energy. My thumb hovered before I clicked on the first image to expand it. I scanned through all 9 photos. In every single one, David was attached to Evelyn's side like a shadow. In the large group shot, everyone else had instinctively arranged themselves around the two of them, placing them dead center like the perfect couple. David's smug expression in those photos made me want to smash my phone against the wall. You would think he was the CEO himself, not some junior assistant. The device buzzed sharply in my hand. A message from Evelyn. A photo of sizzling barbecue meat on a grill. David's handiwork, no doubt. Evelyn had never been one to handle such mundane tasks, not anymore. That used to be my job. Below the photo, she had written, "The barbecue smells amazing. When you've calmed down, let's go hiking and grill together. Yours is still the best. Stop being mad and come back to the office." Her tone was so light, so casual, as if I was simply throwing a petty tantrum that would pass. My fingers moved coldly, deliberately. Press and hold her profile picture, delete contact, confirm. The motions felt like snuffing out the last flickering flame of hope. I took a taxi out to the countryside, to the home of Grandpa Leo, the kind old man who had taken in both Evelyn and me when we were just abandoned children with nowhere to go. He had aged considerably since I last saw him. His back was more stooped, his face a roadmap of wrinkles, but his eyes lit up with joy when he saw me. "Adrian, what brings you back? I thought you said the company was keeping you too busy." I forced down all the pain and resentment bubbling inside me and managed a smile. "I missed you, so I came for a visit. How have you been feeling?" Before Grandpa Leo could answer, the curtain to the back room rustled and 2 figures emerged. In that instant, the temperature around me dropped to freezing. Evelyn. And David, still glued to her side. That familiar triumphant gleam appeared in David's eyes when he spotted me. "Oh, Brother Adrian, you're here too." His feigned surprise was insufferable. Grandpa Leo looked from me to them, his cloudy eyes filled with confusion. Evelyn stepped forward, composed and in control as always. "I figured you would come here. That's why I came looking for you." Grandpa Leo's confusion deepened. He looked at Evelyn and asked bluntly, "Then why did you tell me earlier that Adrian was too busy with work to come with you?" The air turned to ice. A flicker of awkwardness crossed Evelyn's face, but she quickly recovered, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "We had a disagreement. He even blocked me." She sighed, her tone carrying that familiar blend of helplessness and indulgence. "I didn't want you to worry." My eyes turned into daggers aimed at David. "Who gave you permission to bring him here?" David immediately slipped into his usual role, timid, wronged, pitiful. Evelyn frowned, her face a mixture of impatience and exasperation. "He was just trying to help. When he heard I was coming to find you at Grandpa Leo's place, he insisted on joining me. He was worried something might happen." She even let out a small laugh, as if finding his behavior endearing. "This kid just can't stop worrying. It's not like there's any danger here in the countryside where I grew up." A bitter, bone-chilling laugh clawed its way out of my chest. She knew exactly what this place meant. She knew this was the home of the man who had saved both of us, the place where we had met, grown up, and learned to survive together. And yet she had brought this man, this vulture circling our relationship, and dragged him onto this sacred ground. Was she trying to show off? To intimidate me? Rage burned through every rational thought. My blood roared in my ears. I took a deliberate step backward, increasing the distance between us. "Evelyn," I said, each word deliberate and sharp, "take him and leave. Now." Evelyn's face finally lost its composure entirely. Her expression darkened. "Are you finished?" Her voice was ice. "When did you develop such a temper that you attack people without any sense of right and wrong? David was only thinking of me. Do you really have to be this jealous over nothing?" Jealous. She thought this was jealousy. She thought this was a tantrum. My eyes bloodshot, I grabbed the gifts and fruits I had brought for Grandpa Leo and hurled them with all my strength toward the door. Get out. Fruits and boxes exploded at their feet in a chaotic mess. Get the hell away from me. The roar that tore from my throat didn't even sound human. Come back here again and I swear I'll beat you bloody every single time. Evelyn stood frozen, stunned by my fury. Her beautiful brows knitted together tightly. She gave me one final look, not of heartbreak, but of disappointment and contempt. Completely unreasonable, she said coldly. You need to calm down and think carefully about your behavior. Then she turned and walked away, her head still held high. David scurried after her, and as he passed me, that same secretive, victorious smile flickered across his lips. They left in triumph. I stood there rooted to the spot, my chest heaving, my body shaking so violently I thought I might collapse. Then I felt a weathered hand rest gently on my shoulder. Grandpa Leo. He didn't say anything. He just patted me slowly, carefully. That gentle touch was like a key turning in a lock, and everything I had been holding back came flooding out. All the resentment, the pain, the despair I had accumulated over so many months erupted. I couldn't hold myself together anymore. In front of Grandpa Leo, my legs buckled and I nearly dropped to my knees. A sob, strangled and raw, escaped my throat. In the one place that had always been my safest harbor, I finally fell apart completely. I stayed the night at Grandpa Leo's house. I couldn't bring myself to return to the city. The sprawling metropolis felt like a foreign country now, so I squeezed into the narrow bed beside the old man who had raised me. His weathered hand kept patting my back rhythmically, accompanied by long, heavy sighs. You two were just tiny little things when I found you, he murmured, his voice soft and distant. The very first time Evelyn saw you, her eyes got all bright, like she'd stumbled upon buried treasure. You were like a little porcupine back then, all spikes and attitude, wouldn't give anyone the time of day. But Evelyn wasn't scared of you. She followed you everywhere, telling anyone who would listen, "Our Adrian is the handsomest boy in the world. He's not ignoring you. He's just shy and needs time." Grandpa Leo's voice grew even gentler. She used to tell me that if she just loved you enough, one day she would melt all that ice around your heart. I stared fixedly out the window. The night pressed against the glass like a suffocating blanket. Sleep wouldn't come. How could it? She had warmed me up, piece by piece, year by year. And now, how does someone change so completely? The girl who had vowed on day one to love me unconditionally. The girl who had stood between me and anyone who dared hurt me. The girl who believed in me without question, without needing proof. Where had that girl gone? In her place stood a stranger who couldn't even recognize basic boundaries. Memories flooded back, unbidden and cruel. On school days, she would wait for me at the corner every morning, clutching a warm breakfast she had bought with her own allowance. After school, she would walk silently beside me, content just to be near me, occasionally launching into rambling monologues trying desperately to make me smile. I remembered the time a girl from the neighboring class got brave and confessed her feelings to me. Evelyn happened to witness it. She puffed up like an angry kitten whose territory had been invaded. She stormed over and actually shoved that girl, making her stumble backward. "Didn't your mother teach you about waiting your turn? That one's mine. Future husband. Called dibs years ago." My face had burned with a mixture of embarrassment and fury when I looked at her. But Evelyn's face was just as red, her neck flushed, yet she stood her ground, glaring at me with those clear, bossy eyes. "You're not allowed to say yes to anyone else. When we grow up, we're getting married. Husband and wife forever. Nothing is ever going to separate us." Nothing would ever separate us. The most passionate promise she had ever made had now become the sharpest blade, carving me open over and over again. My stomach has always been delicate. Eat one wrong thing and I'm done for. So she was always careful, always prepared. In her childhood desk drawer, and later in her office cabinet, there were always stomach medicines she had restocked religiously. Her care had been a quiet, steady stream, but her protection had been a wildfire. In my first year of university, I kept to myself. Didn't socialize much. A bully in my dormitory decided I was an easy target. He rallied others to make my life miserable. My pride wouldn't let me tell anyone, but I had always believed in paying back every wrong. They threw my textbooks into the sink. I filled their backpacks with live toads. They secretly turned off my alarm to make me late for class. I threw all their socks and underwear into the toilet. I met every act of cruelty with equal force. But only Evelyn could see past the thorns I had erected to the raw, bleeding heart underneath. Only she could see that I was barely holding myself together. Only after she asked me again and again did I finally break down and tell her everything. I thought she would advise me to be more patient, or help me come up with some sneakier revenge. Instead, the next day, she stormed into the boys' dormitory like a hurricane. The crashing and banging echoed through the entire floor. A crowd gathered, drawn by the chaos. It was the first time I had ever seen such ferocity in her eyes. She stared down that bully with an intensity that seemed to burn holes through him. If you ever touch Adrian again, I will report you to every professor, every administrator, and the dean himself. I will make sure you cannot finish your education here. She received a formal disciplinary warning for that incident, a mark that followed her throughout her entire college career. I was furious. I yelled at her for being reckless, for potentially damaging her own future. She just smiled and gripped my hand tightly. Remember this, Adrian. No matter what happens, I am always behind you. I will be your support forever. University ended. We plunged headfirst into the real world. We seized an opportunity in live-streaming e-commerce, rented a tiny, cramped room, and started building something from nothing. At crowded business dinners, she always positioned herself in front of me. Knowing how weak my stomach was, she intercepted every single glass of alcohol meant for me. She drank until she gave herself gastric bleeding and ended up in the emergency room, just to keep me from touching a drop. And when a sleazy business partner made inappropriate advances toward her while drunk, I saw red. My fist was already swinging before I could think. But she recovered faster. She slapped the man across the face, then tore up the signed contract on the spot. We were each other's armor and each other's weapon. That was how we survived. We went from a sunless basement to a cozy 2-bedroom apartment, then to a spacious flat in the city center, and finally to a luxurious suburban villa with a swimming pool. But our favorite place was always that first little house we bought, the one that held all the scars and sweat of our struggle. I had never doubted that she was the one. Our wedding was planned for next year. But the indestructible dam quietly cracked after a man named David appeared. He was my complete opposite. I was introverted and stubborn. He was a perpetually energetic ray of sunshine. A bit foolish, maybe, but his words were so sweet they could coat your tongue in honey. He won everyone over effortlessly. From his very first day at work, the office became his personal disaster zone. The printer always jammed for him. His computer always crashed. He never remembered to save important files. And he didn't even have a driver's license, yet he once took my car to drive clients somewhere, causing countless minor accidents. But Evelyn, the same woman who had once fought the whole world for me, became a saint of patience. She never scolded him. She would just casually remark that fresh graduates need time to learn. We went through the same struggles ourselves. I tried to believe that. I tried to suppress the growing irritation in my chest. I told myself it was nothing. Then came the first weekend after David joined the company. It was the 10th anniversary of my relationship with Evelyn. We were at our favorite couples restaurant in the city, enjoying our usual quiet intimacy. Candlelight danced across her profile. The violinist finished a beautiful melody. A waiter wheeled out a cake decorated with fresh strawberries. The air smelled sweet and rich, like all the years we had walked hand in hand. I reached for her hand and leaned in to blow out the candles together. The restaurant doors burst open with a crash. David came barreling in like a panicked animal, ignoring my frozen glare, and grabbed Evelyn's sleeve. His hand rested blatantly on her forearm. "Ms. Evelyn, there's an issue with one of the projects. Could you please come back to the office with me to fix it?" His voice was urgent, laced with just the right amount of panic and helplessness. The temperature around me plunged below freezing. "You're her assistant," I said, my voice like shards of glass. "If you can't handle your own job, does the CEO have to clean up after you?" David seemed intimidated by my presence, shrinking back slightly, but instead of retreating, he pressed closer to Evelyn for protection. "I'm so sorry, Brother Adrian. I didn't realize you were here too. I should have greeted you properly." He lowered his head, his voice trembling like a frightened fawn, innocent and harmless. "Please don't be angry. But work really is important. It's just one dinner, brother Adrian. Please don't be jealous. We have to prioritize the bigger picture. Prioritize the bigger picture. I almost laughed at the absurdity of those 4 words. But there was no warmth in me, only endless mockery. A secretary who can't even do his own job is lecturing me about priorities. I stared at him, my gaze sharp as a blade. You have neither the competence nor the social awareness. If you can do this job, do it. If you can't, pack your things and leave right now. David's eyes immediately welled up with tears. He looked at Evelyn with an expression of pure grievance, as if I were the villain of this story. Evelyn let out a long sigh, the kind of sigh that was meant to torment me. She stood up reluctantly and finally withdrew her hand from mine. This project is very important. He just started working here. It's normal if he struggles sometimes. Her voice was soft but carried an unshakable resolve. I need to go back and handle this. She didn't look at me again. For the first time, she didn't ask for my opinion. She didn't stand by my side. She simply picked up her coat, turned around, and walked out of the restaurant with that boy without a moment's hesitation. Outside, the night was deep and dark. Inside, the candle flickered alone. The warm light fell on me and only me, leaving nothing but cold loneliness. She had left on our anniversary. She had left me for another man. I stared at the unextinguished candle on the table. The flame wavered, as if mocking my solitude. The cream cake had already started to melt, and the bright red strawberries dripped juice like blood. Our 10-year relationship, like that cake, had begun to rot and dissolve the moment that man appeared. The cracks had started right then. After that night, the arguments became the only constant in our relationship. David was like a haunting specter, infiltrating every corner of our lives. When we watched a movie at home, he would call because the printer was broken again. When we sat down for dinner, he would send a photo of himself working late with the caption, "With Ms. Evelyn here, every late night is worth it." In those photos, Evelyn's profile always wore a gentle, barely perceptible smile. His social media became a stage for his performance, a declaration of war directed squarely at me. Every photo, every caption, was dripping with undisguised admiration and longing for Evelyn. I was furious. I was jealous. I fought with her like a madman countless times. But her response never changed. He's just a kid fresh out of school. Still immature. Don't take it so personally. He doesn't understand social boundaries yet. Please try to be more understanding. How absurd. She was asking me to tolerate another man's desire for her. Every argument ended with a gift from her. Limited edition sneakers. Rare figurines. Expensive headphones. Things that once would have made me happy for weeks now felt like cold, calculated hush money. She used material possessions to silence me, to compensate for the affection she was withdrawing elsewhere. And I, pathetic, desperate me, couldn't bring myself to let go of 10 years of love. I couldn't abandon the beautiful memories we had built together. So I chose forgiveness. I chose self-deception. Again and again. Until one day, I looked in the mirror and saw a stranger staring back at me, a man twisted by jealousy and insecurity. A deep, unfamiliar panic rose in my chest. Was I being too confident? Too sure that our decade together made us unbreakable? David's presence made me restless day and night, nearly suffocating me. I felt a crisis unlike anything I had ever experienced. I couldn't go on like this. I needed resolution. A crazy idea took root in my mind and grew like wildfire. I would marry her. I would use a ring, a certificate, to lock her to my side permanently. I would announce to the whole world that she was mine. The day I decided to propose, I called her well in advance, my voice trembling with nervousness I couldn't hide. Evelyn, tomorrow evening. The place where we first said I love you. I have something incredibly important to tell you. After hanging up, I pulled out the velvet box I had hidden in the deepest corner of my drawer. Inside lay a ring. I would tell her that I wanted to marry her. I wanted her to be my wife for the rest of my life. Adrian and Evelyn. Forever. No one would ever come between us again. I waited for her all day at the spot we had agreed upon. From the first pale light of dawn until the sun sank below the horizon. The velvet box in my pocket pressed against my chest, each heartbeat a painful reminder of my foolish hope. The small ring seemed to mock my naive dreams. Finally, I couldn't hold back any longer. My trembling hand lit up my phone screen. In our chat window, the message I had sent that morning, "I'll be waiting for you," sat alone, abandoned, with no response beneath it. No words. No punctuation. Just silence. At the top of the screen, a notification appeared. A new post from David's social media. Against my better judgment, I clicked on it. A photo. David was smiling brightly, the background an office I knew all too well. And there was Evelyn. The same Evelyn I had been waiting for all day. She was curled up next to David's workstation, dressed in a sharp business suit, her head tilted slightly, a soft smile playing on her lips as she focused intently on his computer screen. It was a tenderness I had never seen her direct at me. The caption beneath the photo read, "Our queen is truly the most thoughtful person. Whenever I have work questions, she stays late to guide me patiently. I must work even harder to live up to her careful mentorship." Queen. He called her queen. I suddenly started laughing. Tears streamed down my face. I was the biggest fool in the entire world. A ring couldn't lock down a heart that no longer belonged to me. This ring would never hold her. In her heart, someone else's reflection had already taken root. This wasn't love. It was charity. And I had never wanted charity, I wanted her. I pulled the velvet box out of my pocket, opened it for one last look, and then flung my arm back. The ring, containing all my hopes, all my despair, disappeared into the darkness by the roadside. The resignation letter I had submitted days ago finally received approval with the company's red seal. It was done. This company, built from the ground up by Evelyn and me together, was now filled with ghosts in every brick and beam. I wanted to erase those ghosts completely. Without hesitation, I contacted a few minor shareholders I trusted and quietly sold my stake in the company piece by piece. I wanted no remaining connection to the name Evelyn. The sleepless nights, the blood, sweat, and tears I had poured in over the years were enough to justify those cold numbers on the transfer agreements. It was what I deserved. And it was my final shred of dignity. My phone rang. It was my college classmate, Jason. His voice was as warm as ever. He was organizing a business networking event for former classmates. I fell silent for a moment. After leaving Evelyn, I needed to pave my own path forward. Connections were everything in this circle. I agreed to attend. The hotel ballroom was ablaze with light. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. Glasses clinked. Voices buzzed. I took a deep breath, suppressed every emotion threatening to surface, and fixed a polite smile on my face. Straightening my crisp suit jacket, I stepped inside. "Adrian." Jason spotted me immediately, striding over and clapping me firmly on the shoulder. "Long time no see. Still as handsome as ever." His hearty laugh carried the warmth of a genuine reunion. The coldness in my chest seemed to thaw slightly. I forced a smile and started making small talk. After the pleasantries, Jason's gaze drifted instinctively behind me, a hint of confusion crossing his face. "Hey, where's Evelyn? Didn't she come with you?" He had no idea what had happened. His tone was filled with natural familiarity. Then he sighed, genuine envy in his voice. "I've always been so jealous of you too. The perfect story, from school sweethearts to lifelong partners. Childhood friends, business partners, building an empire together. So when are we finally going to celebrate your wedding?" Every word felt like a dull knife twisting in my chest. Those labels I had once worn with pride had become the sharpest mockery. The noise around me seemed to vanish. I heard my own voice, calm but cold. I shook my head gently. We broke up. The banquet hall fell silent. The air thickened. Classmates who had been chatting nearby turned to stare, eyes wide with disbelief. Broke up? No way. You two were the couple in our department. After all these years together, how could you just break up? Your company is so successful now, you finally made it after all that struggle. I smiled, but the smile didn't reach my eyes. It carried a hint of self-mockery and chill. Nothing in life is impossible. People come and go. That's just how it is. My calm demeanor acted like a bucket of ice water, extinguishing the surrounding clamor. Jason furrowed his brows, studying me closely. His voice dropped. "The way you're talking, did Evelyn do something to hurt you?" I raised my glass, swirling the pale amber liquid inside, watching the light dance through it. I shook my head and uttered 3 words like a question that had no answer. Probably not. Those 2 simple words hit Jason like a physical blow. He opened his mouth to ask more, but when he met my hollow, lifeless eyes, he swallowed whatever he had been about to say. He could see I didn't want to elaborate. And then, the heavy carved doors of the banquet hall swung open from the outside. The noisy room fell into an eerie hush. A stunning figure walked in gracefully. Evelyn. And trailing behind her like a shadow that couldn't be shaken off, David. My gaze lingered on her for barely a second before I looked away calmly. But she walked straight toward me, as if guided by radar. David stayed glued to her side. Adrian. That familiar gentle smile was on her face as she reached out, as if no one else existed, to take my arm. Stop being upset. Why did you block me? You've been angry long enough. Can't I just apologize? Her tone was soft but carried a hint of reproach. I frowned in disgust and pried her hand away just before her fingers touched my suit. I stepped back, creating a formal, cold distance. Evelyn, please keep your distance from me. My voice wasn't loud, but every word was clear and frozen solid. Evelyn's face paled. David immediately stepped forward at the perfect moment, lowering his eyes with that innocent look. Brother Adrian, please don't be angry with Ms. Evelyn anymore. His voice carried just enough to reach the ears of everyone nearby. If you're upset, take it out on me. It's all my fault. If I weren't so slow and stupid at learning, I wouldn't have taken up so much of Ms. Evelyn's time. He looked up at me with a pitiful expression. Ms. Evelyn is just a kind person who wants to help young people. There's really nothing else going on. And Ms. Evelyn truly is wonderful. She's been so good to me. The way he emphasized so good to me was loaded with implication. The surrounding classmates drew closer, their gazes darting between the 3 of us. Jason's face had turned dark. He jabbed me hard in the arm, barely containing his anger. Adrian, who is this guy? A cruel smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. I looked past the posturing David and fixed my gaze directly on Evelyn's face. Aren't you going to introduce him? My voice was soft, but it cut through the tense silence like a knife. What role does the person attached to your hip have at our class reunion? Evelyn's gentle smile flickered for just a moment, so brief it could have been imagined, before her flawless composure snapped back into place. This is David, my assistant. Her tone was perfectly measured. He just graduated, still finding his footing professionally, but is very dedicated. He begged me to bring him along to broaden his horizons. And since this is a casual classmate gathering, I thought it would be fine to have him join. The classmates exchanged uneasy glances, their eyes ricocheting between us, none daring to speak. I nodded slowly, as if genuinely moved by this touching story. Ms. Evelyn truly has such a compassionate heart, always eager to mentor the younger generation. A laugh escaped me, one filled with biting sarcasm. To have a superior like you, he must have been blessed in 3 past lives. Every word dripped with irony, invisible slaps landing on both Evelyn and David. I couldn't stomach watching their performance any longer. I turned to leave. But David apparently had no sense of self-preservation. He stepped forward and grabbed my arm. Brother Adrian, please don't stay angry. His eyes glistened with unshed tears, truly a masterclass in playing the victim. At an event like this, you should at least save face for Ms. Evelyn. As her boyfriend, how could you embarrass her like this? He emphasized the word boyfriend deliberately, then quickly shifted gears, puffing out his chest with barely concealed smugness. Ms. Evelyn is really such a wonderful person. Look at this suit I'm wearing. She picked it out for me herself. She said it made me look more professional and elegant. I almost laughed at his shamelessness. I lowered my gaze to his hand, gripping my arm as if it was something filthy, then slowly, deliberately, pried each of his fingers off one by one. That's wonderful, I said, looking at him with a chilling smile. Don't forget to reimburse Ms. Evelyn for the suit later. After all, it's rare these days to find a CEO who personally shops for her male assistant's wardrobe. I paused, leaning in closer so only the 3 of us could hear, enunciating each word with precision. Since you maintain such an excellent superior-subordinate relationship, next time, remember to ask Ms. Evelyn to help you pick out your underwear as well. The color drained from Evelyn's face completely. She could no longer maintain her gentle facade. "Adrian." Her voice came out sharp, carrying a hint of panicked anger. "What nonsense are you talking about?" I turned back and took one final look at her. Her eyes now held nothing but bone-chilling coldness and disgust. The corner of my mouth curled into a disdainful sneer as I turned and walked away without hesitation. The dust from that confrontation hadn't even settled when, at the dinner table, Evelyn acted as if nothing had happened. She deliberately took the seat next to mine, as if the woman who had been furious moments ago was someone else entirely. I frowned in disgust and instinctively wanted to move, but a quick glance around the long table showed no empty seats left. I was trapped. I leaned back in my chair, radiating a clear stay-away energy, letting her perform however she wanted. David, ever the loyal dog, immediately sat down on Evelyn's other side. The atmosphere at the table was strangely lively, filled with clinking glasses and forced cheer. An oblivious classmate raised his glass and laughed loudly. Speaking of which, Adrian and Evelyn were the most famous golden couple in our entire school back in the day. I only twitched the corner of my mouth. My smile was as thin and cold as paper. I didn't respond. Another classmate, probably drunk and emboldened by alcohol, pressed further. "It's been so many years now. When are you two getting married? Have you set a date yet?" David's face darkened visibly. He suddenly interrupted the conversation, picking up a glistening piece of sweet and sour ribs with his chopsticks and placing them precisely onto Evelyn's plate. "Ms. Evelyn, try this. It's really good." The familiarity in his gesture suggested he had done it 1,000 times before. Evelyn didn't even lift her eyes, nodding casually as if she were accustomed to this level of intimacy. The table went silent. Classmates exchanged loaded glances. Something was clearly off. Evelyn took a slow, deliberate bite of the rib, then looked up and gave the entire table a perfect smile. "If everything goes according to plan, the wedding will be next year. I'll be sure to send invitations to everyone." David's lips pressed into a thin line. He looked up and glared at me resentfully, his eyes filled with unconcealed jealousy. Watching this absurd scene unfold in front of me, I could only find it pathetic. I set down my glass with a soft clink against the porcelain plate. The sound acted like a signal, drawing every eye toward me. Only when the entire room had fallen completely silent did I leisurely clear my throat. "We've already broken up." My voice was calm, as if I was stating an irrelevant fact. "I'm afraid you won't be receiving any wedding invitations from us." The gentle smile on Evelyn's face instantly shattered. "Don't talk nonsense." Her voice rose, annoyance creeping in. "Even if you're upset, don't cause a scene at an occasion like this." The tension at the dinner table became unbearable. I set down my knife and fork. The clatter of cutlery pierced the silence. "I'm finished. Everyone, enjoy your meal." I stood up and, under the astonished stares of everyone present, walked straight toward the restroom without looking back, leaving her to deal with all the awkwardness and embarrassment alone. When I emerged from the bathroom, water still dripping from my fingertips, I passed by a reception room. The door was slightly ajar. A voice, Evelyn's, leaked through the crack, along with a female classmate's concerned questions. "Evelyn, what's really going on? You and Adrian have ended up like this, and then there's that male assistant of yours." Evelyn let out a small laugh. Her tone carried 7 parts helplessness and 3 parts indulgence. "He's just being childish. He thinks I've gotten too close to my new assistant, so he's jealous." She painted herself as the patient, magnanimous older sister tolerating her immature younger brother, playing the part flawlessly. After all, she was indeed a few years older than me. The female classmate hesitated. "But he's never broken up with you in front of so many people before, no matter how angry he got. Could this be serious this time?" Silence hung in the air for a moment. Then Evelyn's firm voice rang out, carrying an undeniable sense of control. "Impossible. We grew up together. We survived together. There's no one in this world closer to each other than we are. He promised to marry me, to take care of me forever. He said he couldn't live without me." She paused, her voice taking on a sweet, almost triumphant tone. "And I can't live without him either." I stood outside the door, listening to this ridiculous self-hypnosis, my face completely expressionless. It was like watching a clumsy one-woman show. I walked past the door without even glancing inside. Back in the banquet hall, the noise continued, but beneath the surface, undercurrents of curiosity and discomfort swirled. Most people had finished eating and gathered in small groups, whispering among themselves. I found a quiet corner and pulled out my phone, scrolling aimlessly to isolate myself from my surroundings. But some people don't know when to leave well enough alone. David approached me, glass in hand, wearing that fake smile. "Brother Adrian," he said, deliberately lowering his voice just enough for nearby ears to catch. "You were really out of line today." He sighed theatrically, putting on a heartbroken expression as if he were concerned for my well-being. "You haven't been coming to the office these past few days, and Ms. Evelyn has been drowning in work all by herself. How can you bear to do that to her?" Then his tone shifted, revealing a smugness he could no longer hide, like a dog proudly wagging its tail. "I've been staying late every night to work overtime with Ms. Evelyn recently." Inquisitive gazes immediately fell on the two of us, studying David's barely concealed arrogance. A bitterly cold smile curled at the corner of my lips. I slowly stood up. The movement wasn't fast, but it captured everyone's attention like a slow-motion button had been pressed. "David," my voice echoed through the deathly silent banquet hall. "Being a kept man and announcing it to the world, do you have some kind of special fetish? Destroying someone else's relationship, does that give you a sense of accomplishment?" The air in the room froze solid. David's smug expression cycled from red to white to an ugly purplish color. He roared, his voice cracking. "What did you say, Adrian? Who are you calling a kept man?" I kept my face cold and raised my hand. Smack. The crisp sound exploded in the dead silence, impossibly loud. Evelyn happened to return at that moment and witnessed the scene. Her face darkened instantly as she hurried over in her heels. "What are you doing, Adrian? What's going on?" David immediately found his pillar of support. He hid behind Evelyn, his pitiful act in full swing, eyes reddening, voice trembling as if he were about to cry. His performance was worthy of an award. "Ms. Evelyn, I just saw Brother Adrian sitting alone and wanted to come over and encourage him not to be angry with you because of me. And then he called me a kept man and hit me." After hearing this, Evelyn's beautiful features were covered in frost. She glared at me fiercely, her eyes filled with undisguised disappointment and blame. "How could you humiliate him like that in front of everyone? He's just a young man, Adrian. Apologize to him. Right now." I looked at the woman in front of me, her harsh words directed at me while she shielded another man behind her. But instead of anger, I felt only amusement, as if I were watching a meticulously rehearsed farce. "I hit him, and everyone here saw it." My voice was calm, steady, almost lazy. "Why don't you ask everyone what exactly he said to earn that slap from me?" Evelyn's frown deepened. She swept an intimidating glance across the surrounding classmates. But everyone who met her eyes looked away, exchanging uncomfortable, complicated glances. The entire banquet hall remained silent. No one responded. That silence was the best possible answer. I sneered, each word striking Evelyn's heart like a hammer. "He said that during the days I haven't been at the company, you've been staying late with him every night. He also said I have no perspective and that I've been nothing but trouble for you." My gaze swept over the aggrieved face hiding behind her. The mockery in my voice was about to overflow. "What? Has being a kept man given you such a sense of superiority that you dare to come and show off to the legitimate partner? Tell me, did he deserve that slap?" Evelyn's face went pale. Her lips trembled. Finally, she turned to David, her voice carrying a hint of pleading she probably didn't even recognize. "Did you really say that?" David hid behind her, stammering, his tears falling even harder. "I just felt bad for you, Ms. Evelyn. Seeing how hard you work, I wanted Adrian to stop giving you such a hard time." His skill at twisting the truth was truly masterful. Evelyn seemed to find her escape route. She let out a long, weary sigh, the kind directed at me. She spoke gently to David first. "Adrian is my boyfriend. I know you meant well, but treating him this way is disrespectful. Please be more mindful in the future." Then she turned to me, her beautiful face once again taking on that condescending, judgmental expression. "David didn't mean any harm. Adrian." Smack. Another slap. Even harsher, even louder than the first. The air in the banquet hall was completely sucked away by that sound. Evelyn clutched her rapidly swelling cheek, her pupils contracting in utter disbelief. "Adrian, you hit me!" she screamed. I looked at her, and the last shred of pathetic tenderness in my heart vanished with that slap. Apologize? What a joke. My gaze was as cold as a blade, slicing across her face and the face of the man behind her. A kept man who covets what belongs to others and destroys relationships deserves to be beaten. And a woman with no sense of boundaries who engages in emotional infidelity needs even more of a wake-up call. I spoke slowly, deliberately, my voice not loud but striking everyone's heart like a heavy hammer. "Evelyn, we're done. Don't come near me again. And especially don't bring disgusting things like him in front of me ever again." A cruel curve lifted the corner of my mouth. "Otherwise, I'll beat you every time I see you." After saying that, I didn't look at their ashen faces again. I turned and somehow managed a polite smile toward the stunned classmates. "I'm sorry, everyone. I've broken up with Evelyn. The reason, as you can all see. I apologize for ruining the mood tonight. I have somewhere to be, so I'll take my leave now. Let's catch up another time." In the suffocating silence, I calmly picked up my coat from the back of my chair, put it on, and walked out of that revolting farce without looking back. After Adrian left, the banquet hall fell into a strange, heavy silence. The air seemed to thicken, suffocating everyone in the room. David's aggrieved expression shifted into something more indignant. He stubbornly bit his lip, refusing to let his tears fall. That pitiful look, which had once fooled so many, now seemed like nothing more than a crude performance. Jason couldn't take it anymore. His chest heaved violently, fury burning in his eyes. "Evelyn, do you think any of this is appropriate? Look at what kind of event this is. This is our class reunion. Is he one of our classmates? You call it bringing him to broaden his horizons. What kind of gathering insists on tagging along? You brought him here specifically to show off in front of Adrian, didn't you?" Jason's questions lit a fuse. The room exploded. Another classmate spoke up, her voice sharp. "We've been holding this in for so long. Someone with such obvious ulterior motives, anyone with eyes can see right through him. Are you really unaware, Evelyn, or are you pretending not to know?" A male classmate snorted coldly. "A man like that and a woman who enables him, they deserve each other. Always coveting what belongs to someone else, trying to latch onto a wealthy woman, then daring to provoke the actual partner right in front of him. He claims to be a college graduate, but his morals are bankrupt. I wonder how his parents raised such a creature." Word by word, the whispers that had been suppressed came flooding out, drowning Evelyn. Her red, swollen cheek burned with a fire that wouldn't stop, a constant reminder of the humiliation she had just endured. But these words cut even deeper than the slap. Her face cycled from pale to ashen. She looked utterly destroyed. "Enough," she finally snapped, her voice cracking with frustration. "Just stop talking. It was my mistake to bring him." She took a shaky breath. "But I did not cheat. I have done nothing to betray him." Jason let out a cold, sarcastic laugh. "Do you have to end up in bed together for it to count as cheating? Ask anyone here, who could accept the kind of ambiguous behavior between you and David? Spending every day together, physically close, him taking care of you, you taking care of him. And then you bring him right in front of your partner to show off." He stepped closer, his gaze sharp. "Put yourself in Adrian's shoes. If he spent every day inseparable from another woman, doting on her, and then brought her right in front of you to flaunt their closeness. Tell me, Evelyn, could you tolerate that?" Jason's voice was still ringing in her ears when the phone in Evelyn's pocket buzzed. The vibration felt like a death knell. She pulled it out instinctively. A message from the HR director. "Personnel change notice. Department manager Adrian has resigned." Those few words made her eyes widen in shock. Her trembling fingers immediately dialed the HR director's number. The call was answered almost instantly. "Hello, Ms. Evelyn. How can I help you?" "When did Adrian resign?" Her voice came out sharp and distorted. "Why wasn't I told?" The HR director sounded bewildered, his tone innocent and confused. "I asked Brother Adrian, and he said you were aware of it. He even hinted that there might be a new branch opening and that he would be taking charge. I assumed this was something you had discussed together. Discussed? Had he discussed it with her? All he had given her was a slap and a cold, public breakup. Evelyn slammed her phone down furiously. But before she could process this bombshell, her phone lit up again. Another message, this time from a company shareholder. No extra words, just a single photo. A signed share transfer agreement. Black and white, crystal clear. Adrian's 50% stake in the company had been sold off piece by piece to other minor shareholders. Not only had he left, but he had also pulled the rug out from under her. Adrian had completely withdrawn from her company. Evelyn's legs gave way. She swayed, barely catching herself. The pain on her face, the mockery in her ears, none of it mattered anymore. This was his true revenge. Swift, clean, utterly devastating. After I had mostly sorted out my affairs, I packed a simple bag and flew to a distant land, a place I had always dreamed of visiting. For so many years, I had been like a tightly wound spring, running myself ragged trying to build a better future for her. Now that the spring had snapped, I finally had time for myself. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to heal my scarred heart. The beauty of that place was a kind of quiet peace that could cleanse the soul. The sky was a pure, unblemished blue, so clean it made my chest ache. My local guide was a young woman named by Lynn. She had strikingly beautiful features and a natural talkativeness that made her easy to be around. She told me about local customs, history, and landmarks with effortless enthusiasm. We chatted easily, and her warm voice slowly chased away the last traces of gloom that had settled in my heart. After a week of wandering through ancient streets, my phone rang. It was Jason. His voice sounded cautious. "Adrian, has Evelyn tried to contact you?" I gazed at the endless landscape stretching out before me, my voice calm and steady. "I don't know. I've blocked her everywhere. I'm traveling right now." Jason was silent for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. "She's losing her mind, Adrian. She's been calling everyone we know, trying to find out where you are. It seems like she regrets everything. She wants to apologize." He paused, then finally asked the question, "Do you still want to forgive her?" Forgive? I shook my head, then realized he couldn't see me. My voice came out barely above a whisper, as if I were speaking to myself. "No, I don't love her anymore." The moment those words left my mouth, I felt an unprecedented sense of relief. On the other end of the line, Jason let out a long, heavy sigh. "It's such a shame, really. How many decades does a person get? She was part of almost your entire youth. The connection you two had, from childhood to adulthood, is it really gone just like that?" "People change," I said simply. "Human hearts are unpredictable. That's just how it is." Jason's voice grew more serious. "I don't think Evelyn is going to give up easily. She's acting like a madwoman. I heard she even used her connections to check airline records. She might come looking for you in person." The wind brushed past my ears, carrying the crisp, clean scent of open land. I smiled, but my eyes remained calm as still water. If she wants to look for me, let her. I didn't come here to hide. I came here to find peace for myself. Whether she comes or not doesn't affect me. Jason sighed again and told me what had happened after I left the reunion that night. He said that David had tried to play the victim and cling to Evelyn, but Evelyn had seemed like a completely different person. Her eyes were icy cold as she immediately shook off his hand and told him to stay far away from her. David lost his composure completely, shouting and crying, but Evelyn didn't even glance at him. She turned and walked away without looking back. I listened quietly, as if hearing a story that had nothing to do with me. Everything about them, reaching my ears again, stirred no ripples in my heart. And then, Adrian. The voice came from behind me. Hesitant. Disbelieving. My movements paused. I said to Jason on the phone, "I'll call you back. She's here." Before Jason could respond, I hung up. I turned around calmly. There she was, stumbling toward me, breathless. Evelyn. In just a few days apart, she seemed to have lost all her vitality. Her eyes were sunken. Her once beautiful hair was tangled and messy. She no longer resembled the radiant, confident woman who had conquered the business world. She stopped in front of me, gasping for breath, her chest heaving. When she finally spoke, Her voice was hoarse, filled with desperate questions. Why did you resign? Why did you sell all your shares? Why can't I reach you? Why did you block me on everything? I looked at her bloodshot, questioning eyes and smiled gently. A small, faint smile. Because we broke up, Evelyn. When a relationship ends, it should be cut cleanly. I don't want any further ties with you. That's why I resigned. As for the shares. I paused, my tone calm as if discussing the most ordinary business transaction. That's what I earned from dedicating my entire youth to building that company. I blocked you because a proper ex should be as good as dead to you. My gaze held steady. I won't disturb your new life. I'm asking you not to appear in front of me anymore. It's really that simple. I didn't agree to break up. Evelyn's voice rose, trembling and raw. She stared at me, her eyes red and stubborn, on the verge of collapse. I let out a soft scoff. This is a breakup, not a divorce. I don't need your consent. Tears finally spilled down her cheeks. Is it really just because I didn't reply to your message that one day? I've explained this. I was busy with work. She stepped closer, her voice cracking. Don't you think you're overreacting? Yes, I said. That single word shattered all her self-deceptive hope. Because of that one day. I told you a day in advance that I had something incredibly important. I asked you to keep your schedule clear. That morning, before dawn, I sent you a message full of joy, waiting for you. And you, from sunrise to sunset, an entire day, did not send me a single word back. You said you were working, but ask yourself honestly, were you doing your work? You were helping David solve his project crisis. He is your subordinate. That is his job, not yours. You abandoned me for an entire day for him. You couldn't even reply to a single message. So yes, I want to break up with you. I am no longer your first priority. A treasure with a flaw in it is no different from a rock on the side of the road to me. I don't cherish imperfect love. I turned my head slightly, looking at the fading sunset, and sighed. You know me, Evelyn. I've never been able to tolerate even a speck of dust in my eyes. I swear, Adrian, I have never done anything to betray you. Her voice carried a pleading note. I genuinely only see David as a junior colleague I'm mentoring. I wanted him to grow quickly so he could help the company. I didn't cheat. You can't sentence me to death like this. Sentence you to death. I laughed bitterly. Evelyn, do you really believe that physical infidelity is the only kind of betrayal? I find physical cheating disgusting, but emotional infidelity is even more repulsive to me. After more than 20 years together, I never imagined I would use such harsh words on you. But I forgot, I was always a cold, solitary person. You melted the ice around my heart with your warmth and sincerity. And now, you're the one pushing me back into that abyss. You haven't physically cheated. But you enjoy his admiration, don't you? You allow him to use work as an excuse to get close to you, over and over, breaking every boundary of appropriate distance. You abandon me repeatedly for what he calls a project crisis. You let him into our home. You cook for him. You prioritize all his problems over me. You blame me for being petty and jealous. My heart died slowly, Evelyn, in all those moments when you ignored me, when you chose him over me, when you made me feel like I didn't matter. Ice doesn't form in a day. Hearts don't cool in an instant. It was 1,000 small cuts, boiling a frog in warm water. By the time I realized how much it hurt, this relationship had already burned to ashes. At that moment, light footsteps approached. Bai Lin, who had gone to buy yogurt for me, returned. She held 2 cups in her hands, her clear eyes confused as she looked at my frozen expression and then at Evelyn, who was crying. I gave Bai Lin a reassuring smile, a genuinely warm one, and took a cup from her hand. Evelyn's bloodshot eyes locked onto Bai Lin with murderous intensity. Her voice came out shrill. Who is this woman? Have you been with her this whole time? Is that why you made up such a ridiculous excuse to break up with me? You cheated first. Slap. Even louder than before. I pulled my hand back and watched the red mark bloom on her face. My eyes showed no emotion. Evelyn, don't project your own guilt onto me. She is my tour guide. Nothing more. Then tell me the real reason. Evelyn was nearly hysterical. One missed message. One small thing like that, and you want to throw away more than 20 years. I've apologized. What more do you want? I took a deep breath, the cold air burning my lungs. Do you want to know what I was going to do that day, when I sent you that message? Evelyn's crying stopped abruptly. She froze. I smiled bitterly. You see, it's been this long, and you haven't even bothered to ask. You weren't like this before. The old you would have treasured every single word I said, held every syllable close to your heart. My gaze drifted past her to the horizon. That day, I bought a ring. I was going to propose to you. Time stopped. The expression on Evelyn's face shattered into bewildered shock. We grew up together. We survived together. We endured things most people never experience. We finally made it. But when David appeared, I felt the first real crisis of my life. I was scared, Evelyn. I wanted to lock you down. I wanted a ring and a certificate to tie you to me forever. A self-deprecating laugh escaped me. Looking back, I was so naive. But I should thank you for breaking that appointment that day. Thank you for not showing up. If we had actually gotten married, I can't imagine how I would survive being married to a woman who still had someone else in her heart. I would have become a jealous, self-destructive monster. Fortunately, I can still cut my losses now. I didn't know, Evelyn whispered, tears streaming silently down her face. I didn't know you were going to propose. We were already planning to get married next year. Enough. I cut her off coldly. I don't want to hear any more excuses. She grabbed my hand, her grip desperate, her palm sweaty. I can change, Adrian. I know I was wrong. We can fix this. Please don't give up on us. Have you forgotten? We were so good together. We survived everything. The leaky basement. The cold dumplings. You used to smile and say that as long as we were together, even frozen dumplings tasted better than anything. I've loved you since I was a child. From the moment I first saw you. The only man I've ever imagined as my husband is you. Please don't do this. Yes, the past was beautiful, I said. But precisely because it was so beautiful, I find it even more unbearable to see what it's become. I can't settle for less than everything. Let's just leave it here. I pried her fingers off mine one by one. Then I took by Lynn's hand, turned around, and walked away without the slightest trace of nostalgia. Behind me, Evelyn's sobs finally broke into heart-wrenching wails. In my last 2 days in that distant land, the wind was free and the clouds unfurled like painted silk. Before I left, Lynn and I exchanged contact information under the setting sun. She saw me off at the airport, her dark eyes gazing at me. Will you come back? The wind lifted her hair. There was reluctance in her voice. I looked into her clear eyes and saw something that reminded me of snow-capped mountains. Maybe. I really like it here. Then it's a deal. When you come back, you'll find me, okay? As the plane pierced through the clouds, my thoughts drifted elsewhere. There was still one thing I needed to retrieve, the only keepsake I had when Grandpa Leo found me. He said it might be a memento from my birth parents. All these years, it had been locked away in Evelyn's office. It was time to get it back. When I stepped into the company, countless eyes turned toward me. An eerie silence fell over the floor. My former colleagues all looked at me, their lips moving as if they wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. I gave them a faint nod, a gentle but distant smile, and walked straight to the office at the end of the corridor. The door was slightly ajar. Through the crack, fragments of an argument spilled out. David's pleading voice. Ms. Evelyn, I made this porridge myself. Please have some. You haven't eaten properly in days. Your stomach. Then Evelyn's voice, furious to the breaking point. Get out. Didn't I tell you to submit your resignation immediately? What did I do wrong? I'm just worried about your health. Please don't be upset with me. Crash. The sound of a bowl being violently swept to the floor, shattering into pieces. Get out. Can you not understand plain English? I stood outside, expressionless, listening to everything. My heart didn't move. Then I raised my hand and pushed the door open without hesitation. In the chaos of the messy office, Evelyn's furious eyes found mine. The inferno in them miraculously extinguished. Something new lit up, bright, desperate, hopeful. She sprang to her feet and crossed the room in a single stride. Adrian, you're back. Her voice trembled. You're not angry anymore. I promise I'll never. Halfway through her sentence, she noticed David still standing there and immediately began explaining. There's nothing between us. He just came to bring me food, and I didn't accept it. I've already dismissed him, but he won't leave. Please don't misunderstand. I cut her off. No need to explain. I'm just here to pick up my pendant. The mention of the pendant seemed to drain all the strength from her body. Her face went pale. You want to take it back? You really don't want any connection to me at all anymore. I looked at her with quiet silence. Let it be. That soft answer broke her completely. Evelyn grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. Don't sentence me to death, Adrian. Please. Give me a chance to make things right. It was all my fault. I had no boundaries. I hurt you. She clung to me like I was her only lifeline. I'll change everything. Let's go back to how we were. Ms. Evelyn. David's voice rose, sharp and desperate. His face was red. Stop humiliating yourself like this. What's so great about Adrian? He has a terrible temper. He doesn't understand you. He always makes you beg for his forgiveness. He's so immature. Why do you keep compromising for him? Evelyn turned. Her teary eyes filled with pure hatred. She raised her hand and slapped David across the face. The sound echoed through the silent office. Shut up. Who gave you the right to talk about Adrian like that? David clutched his burning cheek, humiliation and disbelief warring on his face. Ms. Evelyn, you're so successful. Why would you lower yourself for him? You've always been the one giving, the one compromising. What right does Adrian have to? Before he could finish, my fist connected with his jaw. Crack. The sound of bone shifting. I shook out my hand. Had enough. David staggered backward, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. Colleagues who had gathered at the open doorway gasped. I met David's venomous glare with a cold sneer. Who do you think you are to judge what's between us? You're a third wheel who couldn't even earn a title, pretending to be noble. If I'm not worthy, do you really think you are? Everything I said is the truth. David roared. You just attack everyone. Ms. Evelyn gave you everything. She bought you thoughtful gifts. Why do you treat her like this? Because I was the one who stood by her side when she had nothing. My voice struck the room like a hammer. Because when we were building this company from scratch, I was the one who went on business trips with her, who drank until my stomach bled, who stayed up for 3 days and 3 nights revising plans. Half of her success, half of everything she has today, belongs to me. I stepped closer to him. Do you think you know her? Do you think she's been wronged? If she weren't the powerful, wealthy Evelyn, if she had nothing, would you still follow her around like a dog? What happens between us is none of your business. I broke up with her, but that doesn't give some opportunist the right to judge what I contributed to this relationship. Know your place. You just wanted to marry her for her money, David spat. Another punch. This one with all my strength behind it. I heard something in his face crack. Evelyn stood there watching the entire time. She didn't say a word for him. She didn't try to stop me. Her silence was an invisible blade, cutting all 3 of us to the bone. I laughed, a hollow, empty sound. You're right about one thing, I said, looking at David's stunned face. In love, the one who isn't loved is the third wheel. So you did everything you could to drive us apart. Now that we're broken up, the position you always wanted is empty. But does she love you? My words crushed him. You're still the one in the shadows. Still unloved. A mistress will always be a mistress. Always a shameful existence. Always a synonym for shamelessness. I walked past him to Evelyn's desk. She instinctively stepped back, as if I were a dangerous animal. I pulled open the drawer she used most often. My pendant lay in its velvet box, nestled beside the jewelry she treasured most. I took it out. The cold metal pressed against my palm, silently mocking this entire absurd farce. That's enough. I looked at her pale face. Evelyn, from now on, you go your way, and I'll go mine. Goodbye forever. I turned and left. I didn't look back. Behind me was deathly silence and the sound of everyone in the hallway holding their breath. Later, I heard that David was fired the same day. The sordid details of how he had destroyed someone else's relationship and his pattern of latching onto wealthy women somehow spread throughout the entire industry. He was blacklisted. Within a year, he slunk back to his hometown, never to be heard from again. Evelyn didn't bother me again. She continued being the aloof, untouchable Ms. Evelyn. I heard from former colleagues that she had become increasingly cold, her presence so gloomy it frightened people. Employees would cross the street to avoid her. But none of that had anything to do with me anymore. Letting go of someone you love is like carving out a piece of your own flesh, a pain that tears at your very core. But wounds, eventually, do heal. The suffocating humidity of the city weighed on me, so I booked another flight to that distant land. The wind there was dry and biting, but it swept away the last traces of gloom from my heart. Waiting for me, once again, was the girl named by Lynn. Her smile was pure as snow. Will we have a new story? I don't know. But what I do know, what I am absolutely certain of, is that I want a love that is 100%, not a fraction less. And I will never, ever settle.